Well, it's been really interesting to see that landlords are increasingly talking about deposit replacement on property tribes, and I'm very pleased to say that we've got a new commercial partner joining us who can bring clarity to that, because obviously it's a new topic, and we're joined by Zero Deposits, and CEO John Notley is with me now. And John, welcome on board to Property Tribes. It's interesting to see that landlords have suddenly started talking about deposit replacement. What do you think is prompting them to start looking at this?
It's pretty rare that a product comes along that is such a clear win to everyone involved in the property transaction. So from a tenant point of view, we can help them reduce the upfront cost of renting. And you can see from the feedback we're getting from tenants that those who want that option absolutely love zero deposit. From a landlord's point of view, you've got, I think on the face of it, most landlords would come to the product thinking that it's a product for tenants, but actually when they look more closely at zero deposit and the benefits we can offer them, they get really excited about the product as well. And obviously letting agents benefit from the same thing. So you add those things together, and it's kind of no surprise to us that we're seeing exponential growth, I mean significant growth on a monthly basis. We're rolled out to 1,200 letting agents. We've covered thousands of tenants already. It's a really exciting opportunity. It's a tough market at the moment. There's more legislation coming in, and we see zero deposit helping with all of that. There's a wider point here around zero deposit and deposits generally. So if a tenant buys a zero deposit guarantee, it's not a cash deposit. So therefore the landlord is not subject to the same regulations that they would be under a cash deposit. So that's the case today before the tenant fee ban comes in. So as an example, all of the prescribed information, the issues around Section 21, they're no longer relevant when it comes to zero deposit because there's no cash deposit in place, and we deal with all of the distribution of the insurance documents. So that's a big win today, let alone the fact that we deal with the registration with TDS, so the landlord doesn't have to worry about that either. With the tenants fees bill that's coming in on the 1st of June, again, because we're not a cash deposit, the landlord isn't subject to the rules with the cash, the 5-week cap that's coming in. So zero deposit covers 6 weeks. That's not going to change after 1st of June. So now the landlords can see that they've got even more cover with zero deposit than they would have with a cash deposit. So there's a whole host of benefits when tenants choose zero deposit. I think the other thing that's worth pointing out is that obviously the tenant fees bill is outlawing any fee that's conditional upon granting or renewing a lease. So landlords and agents must offer zero deposit as a choice to their tenants. And if the tenant chooses to buy zero deposit in place of the deposit, they'll accept it. So that's the important point to remember around the fees bill.
Indeed, and I just do want to pick up on your point about zero deposit not being subject to existing regulations surrounding traditional TDP schemes, because clearly, if you don't serve the prescribed information correctly or you don't protect the deposit within a certain time period, it opens the landlord up to risk, landlord can't issue a Section 21. So actually, the zero deposit option completely strips away all that red tape, that admin.
Yes, it's very clear. Zero deposit guarantee isn't a cash deposit, therefore it's not subject to the same rules. Therefore, the prescribed information and those issues that many landlords have around that administration, especially for landlords who are coming into the market relatively infrequently, we take that headache away from them.
Indeed. Now, playing devil's advocate, I could say, tenancy deposit protection in the traditional sense has been in existence for over, I think it's 12 years now. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. What would you say to that?
Well, we heard that ain't broke, don't fix it quite a lot during the product protection. There were a number of other themes as well, and genuine and valid concerns that many landlords and agents had on accepting something instead of cash. So the first thing is, how can we be sure this product is as safe as cash? Why would and why should a landlord accept something that offers them less protection? So that's like issue number one. Issue number two was, we're concerned that this is going to affect the quality of tenant that we accept under the tenancy. So that's something we had to address as well. The third thing was, if the tenant's not providing a deposit, they haven't got any skin in the game. And a lot of landlords and agents were concerned that under this new deposit replacement product that tenants might change their behaviour at the end of the tenancy. And then the last thing was, when I get to the end of the tenancy, how can I be sure that I get a fair claim? How can I be sure that my claim's paid? And really those 4 questions and a whole bunch of others were at the heart of everything that we did when we developed Zero Deposit.
And obviously you've come up with answers to all of those, and particularly, with my landlord hat on, I was concerned that if a tenant had got access to the property without the cash deposit, that maybe they wouldn't treat the property so well.
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game.
Yeah, it's a phrase we heard often when we were developing the product. So the important thing to remember with Zero Deposit is the tenant is still fully accountable for the property. Everything that is covered in the tenancy agreement, Zero Deposit covers. Really what's happening here is that at the moment, with a cash deposit, the landlord, understandably, is asking the tenant to make a down payment on damage, cleaning or unpaid rent at the end of the tenancy. What we're doing is replacing the need for the tenant to do that. So this isn't a case that the tenant's insured and they're sort of let off the hook if they leave the property in a poor state. And actually we saw a couple of behaviours when we were doing our research. One was, if the deposit's locked up and it was locked up 2 years ago and you've got to find another deposit before you move into your next property, are you going to be thinking about your current property, or is that deposit long forgotten? Under our product, you will get a bill if you leave any cleaning, because we seek collection once we've paid the landlord. And the second thing is rent skipping. So under the cash deposit, it creates real problems for landlords under the existing regime if the tenant skips the last month's rent, because it's not as simple as pre-deposit protection where the landlord could simply dip into the deposit. There's a process that the landlord has to follow. There's no rationale for the tenant to do that under our product because there's no deposit that's left. So some real, in terms of that skin in the game piece, we've made sure that we've replicated the responsibilities that a tenant have under the current cash deposit, under Zero Deposit.
Well, that's incredible what you said about also, the tenant using the rent, using the deposit as the last month's rent.
Which is a nightmare for the landlord.
Indeed, it's happened to me many times. So again, it does answer that question as well. And I guess, part of your kind of partnership with Property Tribes is also to provide educational content to help landlords understand the many benefits of Zero Deposit protection. And it doesn't conflict with existing the schemes that currently exist, and indeed you're in partnership with TDS, which is another partner of Property Tribes. To
start off with, we are absolutely delighted to be partnering with Property Tribes. I've been around in the property industry for a few years now, and I'm very aware of the network of landlords that Property Tribes have developed. And I think, if you look across our business and what we're trying to do in this new deposit replacement space is really put in place really credible partnerships right across the piece. And I think that's really important when you're asking landlords to look at a new way of doing something that's been in place for many years. So it's probably worth just dealing with how is Zero Deposit as safe as a cash deposit? And we think we've designed something that can give all landlords that comfort. So the first thing is we work closely with Munich Re when we were developing the product, and through their underwriting division, Great Lakes Insurance, every single one of our guarantees is underwritten. So you've got the second largest reinsurer in the world who's put their risk capital behind the product. But naturally, when any landlord hears about insurance, they immediately start worrying about the claims process because people instinctively know how insurers make money. And that was why for us the partnership with TDS was so important. So it's an exclusive partnership where TDS are providing all of the end of tenancy disputes. So the way that it works is when you get to the end of a Zero Deposit tenancy, if there's a claim that the tenant disputes, the evidence goes through to TDS. TDS review it with exactly the same people as with a cash deposit, and then we pay the landlord based on TDS's findings. So the landlord can have comfort that exactly the same process will be followed, and actually again, because we're not limited by the same regulations as the deposit protection schemes, in some areas we've been able to speed that process up. Under Zero Deposit, if there's a really messy dispute, the landlord could get their cash quicker than they could under a traditional cash deposit.
Okay, so if there's landlords watching this whose kind of their ears have pricked up at the thought of Zero Deposit, now they're coming to understand it, what do they do to start using this product?
Either a landlord will be using a letting agent. We've already got 1,200 agents, some real leading names in the sector. There's actually a search map on our website where they can find one of our partner agents. If their agent isn't signed up, again, it's really simple. We've got a very straightforward sign-up process. Because we're regulated, there is a due diligence process we have to go through with any partner to make sure that the network we're developing is a responsible one. But there are scenarios where we can get an agent live in the same day, so there's no need for a hold-up necessarily. If the landlord looks after their own deposits, they simply visit zerodeposit.com/landlord and all the information's there. It's a very simple sign-up process. The tenant's buying the guarantee for the landlord. It costs 1 week's rent up front. It's not plus tax, that's the all-in price up front. Once that guarantee is in place, it stays in place for the lifetime of the tenancy to a maximum of 10 years. Once the tenant has been in the property for 12 months, there's a £26 per year admin fee. And if there are multiple tenants in any tenancy, all these costs are just split between them. Once the guarantee is in place, there's a contract between the landlord and the insurer, which means that no matter what happens, there's no way that contract can be broken unless unless the landlord does something to break the contract. So a landlord can be really comfortable that once the guarantee is in place, it's like having the registration certificate from one of the deposit protection schemes, but it's underwritten. So really simple process.
All online?
All online. We've built our platform so it's fully adaptable to mobile. It's a very simple process. We've had examples of tenancies being introduced and the tenant being signed up within a few minutes. It's a very simple product with a very simple price. The end of tenancy claims process is also fully online, and we're integrated with TDS. So it's just we deliberately made it as easy as possible for everyone involved.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic, John. I think, I feel we've only really even just scratched the surface of what landlords need to know about deposit replacement. But I think particularly when we've got conversations on the forum about landlords struggling to find tenants, I highlight again, you mentioned the 26% additional click-through that one agent partner experienced when they offered this to tenants. I think it's what smart landlords are going to be making sure is on their agenda to understand and perhaps start to develop into their business.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's the really interesting thing that we're seeing. Again, landlords coming to deposit replacement, working on the basis that this is a product that benefits tenants, but then seeing some really clear benefits for themselves. So yes, there's we've seen that research with one agent that could clearly showed that if you advertise a property with zero deposit available, you can get up to 26% more click-throughs. But then you're just into the practical side of it, where at the moment, if you're a tenant and you have to move into a new property and your deposit for your current tenancy is still locked up, you've got to find your rent, you've got to find your deposit. Quite often people have to wait till the end of the month, and we keep hearing this phrase, waiting till payday. Whereas with zero deposit, they can pay for it on their credit card and they can move in faster. And working with one of our partner agents, Acorn, when we first launched, one of their landlord customers was able to give us clear evidence that having zero deposit just sped the process up. So it really is a case that so many landlords are coming to us to find out more because they see this product has a benefit for their tenants, and they leave us really understanding the zero deposit is just as smart for them as it is for the tenant.
Absolutely, and that is one of the reasons that you wanted to join Property Tribes, was to create educational content around this topic for landlords. This is just the start, so thank you very much to John for joining me. Thank you for your support of Property Tribes, helping maintain Property Tribes as a free-to-use community resource for landlords by your commercial support. And if you've got any questions about the topic of zero deposit, or indeed deposit replacement in general, John and his team are going to be on hand to answer them. So please do leave any feedback or comments on this video or start a new topic, and we're going to be discussing this more in the future. So this is just really the start, John. Great to be with you on the journey of zero deposit.
Thank you, Vanessa, and we're delighted to be on board.